Hello, everyone. So today I'm going to tackle my lecture entitled Survivor Satirically Breaks Her Silence, a creative writing workshop on political comedy for sexual violence survivors and sexual justice advocates. So um, I began conceptualizing this lecture because of my experience of silence and how it affected my journey as a survivor of sexual violence. So, there are many ways by which a survivor can be silenced. They can be silenced by trauma because trauma is so overwhelming, they are unable to express what they went through, their truths, their feelings, their thoughts. There is also the experience of stigma. This is connected to the third part, wherein because people don't believe in survivors. And so, even if a survivor could speak, no one will believe or listen to that individual. Um, and there's a lack of education on sexual violence also. This can disempower survivors because they don't know that what they went through is sexual violence, so they are unable to articulate and label their experience as sexual violence. And the community also is uneducated about sexual violence, and this creates negligence, apathy, and defensiveness. So the institution and the community's response to the survivor can also silence the survivor. And survivors are not protected against retaliation and hostility, especially legal retaliation. So since they fear this retaliation, they won't speak up anymore. The survivors won't speak up anymore. Or after experiencing retaliation, that will what make them shut up because they're scared now. Predators also have lots of ways by which they silence survivors. The predator will surveil survivors, manipulate them, gaslight them, or groom survivors. That's why they won't be able to realize what they're going through is already sexual violence, or they doubt themselves, or they are afraid of the predator, so they won't speak up. The predator also has power, and the the predator will use this power in terms of abusing campus and civil systems. They will use these systems to retaliate against the survivor in order to silence the survivor. And the predator also has the ability to mobilize their enablers and protectors. The predator's stellar reputation is also another thing that can silence survivors. There's an interesting quote from Shannon Thomas in Healing from Hidden Abuse. Uh, Thomas says, some of the worst hidden abusers not only have good public images, but often it is stellar. Do not for a second think that that is a coincidence. So, because the reputation of the predator is so good, people find it hard to believe that that person would do something so horrible. And that is what will silence a survivor because they'll be scared to like say anything about this person because no one would believe them because this person has such a good reputation. People think so highly of that person. Or even if the survivor will speak, people will not uh, pay attention to what the survivor said. So because of all of these things, I, as a survivor, was silenced for a long time. But then I started to discover means and ways to break that silence. And that is when I discovered satire and how it is an important tool in silence breaking. So how can you use satire for silence breaking? First of all, let's define what is satire. According to this Glossary of Terms, 10th edition by Abrams and Harpham. Satire can be described as the literary art of diminishing or derogating a subject by making it ridiculous and evoking toward it attitudes of amusement, contempt, scorn, or indignation. It differs from the comic in that the comedy evokes laughter, mainly as an end in itself, while satire derides, that is, it uses laughter as a weapon. So there is also indirect satire through fictional narrative. Um, the most common indirect form is that of a fictional narrative in which the object of the satire are characters who make themselves and their opinions ridiculous or obnoxious by what they think, say, and do, and are sometimes made even more ridiculous by the author's comments and narrative style. So again, that is from a glossary of literary terms. So through this exploration, I discovered the benefits of creative expression. Um, so I realized that I could break the silence, but in a safe way. So if I use nonfiction, maybe I can be sued for libel and all of those things. But if I use creative expression, then it's just fiction. It's just imagination. So I am safe from any retaliation. I also uh, saw silencing as a challenge to be more creative, and I started to have fun with the silence, and I discovered more space to break my silence when I explored expressing myself. So that's when I started blending survivor experience with political comedy. So, what is political comedy? I think it is encapsulated by, and why is it like interesting for me? I think that's encapsulated by the quote by Oscar Wilde, wherein Wilde said, "If you want to tell people the truth, make them laugh, otherwise they'll kill you." So, I wanted to tell the truth. But sometimes when you tell people the truth, they have a very negative reaction to it. Might endanger you, might kill you. But if you make them laugh, um, you can get away with it. You can get away with telling the truth. So that's what drew me to political comedy. So I had a lot of influences in terms of political comedy. I was influenced by American comedian George Carlin. Um, he talked about this book, The Art of Creation by Arthur Koestler, wherein Koestler talked about the jester, philosopher, poet. So if you make jokes, you're a jester. If you make jokes that are uh, smart, then you're a jester, philosopher. But if or has meaning, then you are a jester, philosopher. And if you make jokes that have meaning, but in great language, then you are a jester, philosopher, poet. So George Carlin is well known for political and social critiques. And his advice was write about the idiots. So who are the idiots in your life? Who the idiots are individuals who are in power who do injustice. That's who I label as idiots. And that's who you write about and who you critique through being a jester, philosopher, poet. I also like American comedian Megan Gailey. Um, she Her piece is very feminist. My favorite piece about that she did, and it's the stand-up piece called "Tips for Not Getting Murdered." And I'm also influenced by American comedian Tig Notaro. So there was this piece that Tig did. It was talked about dealing with grief through humor, and it's a stand-up piece called Live, wherein Tig talks about um, being diagnosed with cancer, which is a very deep and sad thing. But Tig talked about it through humor, and it's a really wonderful piece. And Tig also has his book, I'm Just a Person, and it also talks about the same thing. Uh, and there's a PETA video on comedian vloggers where they talk about dealing with hardship and frustration through humor. Um, the vloggers were Isa Das and Chai Fonasher. And I also liked English novelist George Orwell, wherein I think uh, the George Orwell's books are a blend of creativity and imagination, and this especially seen in the way George Orwell builds worlds, and the examples of his pieces that does this is Animal Farm in 1984. So how did I discover Survivor satire? So I was feeling silence after experiencing sexual harassment and intimidation. I was fighting for justice, but meeting many roadblocks. I wanted people to know what happened to me, but I was afraid of the stigma. I was afraid of legal retaliation. I was afraid of the consequences of speaking up against powerful people, my harasser, and her enablers and protectors. So I was dealing with silence, and it had an impact on my writing and content creation. I had a hard time writing in my blog because I couldn't write about this particular personal experience. So I started with writing cryptic posts, blog posts, and cryptic stats. I also wrote a lot in my diary, and I opened a secret social media account on Twitter and Instagram. Through this, I was developing humor as a coping mechanism. So, before this, I really love making jokes. I joke when I'm happy, I joke when I'm sad, I joke when I'm angry. I love dark comedy, and and through improv theater comedy, I learned that in order to create comedy, you don't try to be funny. You just try to be truthful. So all of those things I brought with me as I discovered Survivor satire. So I realized the potential in fiction. So I wrote this fictional piece. Um, Vicky gets transported into a post-Me Too world. So it's inspired by a friend who said he writes fiction to write about his life, but pretend it's not about him. So I have real people in mind, uh, but the characters are completely fictional. Initially, I also had an idea of a couple way of changing names, like Wancho Chu to Wanchua, but I decided against it. So, okay. May sexual harassment na naman na innocent. Okay, okay. I'll just pause that for a while. Um, May I realized the potential in poetry. So this is my poem LOL. It's inspired from poetry prompt from The Daily Poet by Kelly Russell Agodon and Martha Silano. I flipped the stereotypes against survivors and explored writing in Filipino. So here's me performing the poem. LOL. May sexual harasser na naman na innocent. Palagi kayong falsely accused ng drama. Oh, palagi nagsinungaling yung biktima. Ang dami ng mga taong nagsasabi na biniktima mo sila. But you're like, oh my God, they are all lying. Pero kung totoo, you're like, oh my God, they are all overreacting. Pero kung di sila OA, you're like, in your opinion, there's never gonna be enough evidence to know what's really true. He said, she said, she said, she said, he said, he said. There are no witnesses. There is no video. Pixar, it didn't happen. Data Privacy Act. Lol. Style mo, bulok. Ikaw gago kang sinungaling ka, makinig ka. Pagpalagay na natin na isang tao lang ang lumantad laban sa'yo at walang ibang nakakita ng pagbastos mo kasi smart ka naman din. Hindi ka naman pahuhuli ka agad. Pero feeling mo, lusot ka na? For your information, may kwento pa rin ang biktima. May mga detalye ang kwento na yon. Ang ibig sabihin nito, palaging merong paraan para imbestigahan ang mga detalye na yon. Kapag ibang krimen, kailangan ba ng CCTV footage bago maimbestigahan? Lahat ng biktima na walang CCTV footage, shut up na lang. Lol, style mo, bulok. Pero strong pa rin eh. Di matinag. Cause you're like, why don't people follow the rotten Jew process? You're like, why don't people believe in this false moral high ground? You're like, why do people get angry on social media? And you're like, why don't people file formal cases so we can make them shut up? Lahat ng gubat, merong ahas. Pero ang mga gubat ngayon, di lang ahas. Meron ding mga caretaker ng mga ahas. Alam na alam mo yun, no? Na ang sistema ay bulok. At kung lahat kami susunod lang sa sistemang bulok, wow! Win na win ka na! Idol, ang galing-galing mong magdahilan. Ang galing-galing mong magposturang santa. Ang galing-galing mong magpaikot ng iba. Hindi na kami paloka sa'yo. Patawa ka eh, lol. Style mo, bulok. At alam kong merong bukas na hindi napapasa ang mga katarantaduhang ganito. At alam kong merong bukas na ang biktima naman ang mananalo. At alam kong merong bukas na mas importante ang kapakanan ng lahat kaysa sa reputasyon ng institusyon at kapakanan at kondisyon ng mga manyak na tulad mo. At alam kong merong bukas na may karapatan maglahad ang biktima ng kanyang karanasan para wakasan na ang paniniil sa katotohanan. Alam kong merong bukas na lahat kami magsasabi sa iyo, lol, style mo, bulok. Okay, so that's it. Okay, let me pause that. Okay, so I also have another piece entitled While We Are Dead. There was a quote that comforted me. So that's how the poem starts by quoting a certain poem. And through this poem, I created a fantasy. So I found freedom in fantasy, symbol, and metaphor. This poem was inspired by a line in the poem Things Haunt by Joshua Jennifer Espinosa. The line goes, things haunt. Things exist long after they are killed. This poem is entitled While We Are Dead. Are you proud? You crushed my body with your power, but all you've done is produce a ghost. The White Lady of Balete got that way by dying, and the thing about dying is it sets you free. Here I am at your back. Nope, my eyes are in your mirror. Just kidding, I'm inverted from your ceiling. Why are you screaming? I guess you never expected that I'll milk all the perks of being dead. So here I am, bloodied, bruised, and defeated, yet with a spanking A for attendance. I am a perfectionist after all. So even if I'm no longer on the roll call, I'll appear. I'll always be present now that I'm dead. You in your hallowed sanctuary. You with your priests and predators. You with your golden gods. You say you're blue. Moral too, hell bent that we should pity you. But the bodies are piling up, and we've become a gossamer community. Some of us violated by the same man or woman, all of us not believed by your codified disbelief. You have so much faith in tenure cheaters. You have so much heart for serial violators. You have so much vehemence against their victims. You have too many laws for those who know the truth. But the clock is ticking. Someday your time will be up. Our voices might be faint as we whisper into the night, as we howl, as we haunt. We won't even be that responsible at all. In fact, we'll always be late. Late into the night. Late, but always a surprise. Because you might be in your luxurious bed, but you'll never sleep soundly again while we are dead. So, um, there's also a list of letters that I wrote entitled Dear Survivor. So, here's an excerpt from it. So I say, it's sad that you are silenced, that you know it's not safe to speak as freely as you would want to. This makes you feel even more alone. Though there are limits to how you can share your story, there are no limits to your creativity. So write in your diary, compose songs, dance, dabble in poetry. Write that angry short story where all of the protectors of your harasser die. Sing, write a script, paint. If there are 1,001 ways that you can express yourself, it will be very hard to silence you. So all of those pieces I'll put in the links below so you can revisit that and share that. And here are some writing exercises that you can try. So write about the idiots. Who are the idiots who surround you? What have they done? What have they said? Add details related to the five senses. Um, From quote to fantasy, pick a quote that resonated with you, then let it inspire an out of this world scenario that you will describe in detail. Get images from fantasy, horror, superhero movies, etc. And my third prompt, try writing prompts. So pick a date and we'll try one of the writing prompts from the Daily Poet. So it's a book wherein each date um is related to a certain prompt. Anyway, and write using Philippine languages. So here are my sources. And that's it. So if you want a copy of this presentation, I'll also link it below. So thank you so much.